There are seasons when effort feels invisible. You show up early, stay late, and do the quiet work no one applauds. Yet the ground of your life looks stubbornly bare. You water the plan, revise the resume, practice the scales, pray the same prayer, but nothing seems to break the surface. Meanwhile, other people's results bloom like a parade in spring. Comparison grows loud. Doubt whispers louder. Maybe you're not talented enough. Maybe your timing is off. Maybe this dream was never meant to live. Have you ever poured yourself into something that refuses to show signs of life? Have you ever wondered if silence is a verdict instead of a stage of growth? What if waiting isn't empty time but formative time? Like roots weaving a hidden network beneath the soil, building the strength needed to hold a future harvest. What if the most important parts of your story are happening where no one can see, including you? Stay with this story till the end, because a simple field and a quiet farmer might change how you think about slow seasons. This isn't a lesson in passive patience, but in patient stewardship, tending, trusting, and continuing when applause is absent and results are shy. If you've ever considered quitting because nothing is happening, this tale offers a gentler truth. Sometimes the work is working where your eyes cannot look. Long ago, in a small farming village tucked between rolling hills and a winding river, planting season had begun. Families scattered across the fields, dropping seeds into furrows with the practiced rhythm of generations. In that village lived a young farmer, not wealthy, not especially skilled, but marked by a quiet hope. He had traveled once beyond his valley and returned with a pouch of rare seeds, tiny, ordinary to the eye, but said to hold within them a treasure of harvest unlike any other. When he pressed those seeds into the soil, his neighbors watched with amusement. "Such foolish faith," they whispered. Others laughed openly. "Why waste a field on grains no one has seen grow here?" For weeks he smiled politely, brushing off the sting of their voices. Yet when he went to the field alone, a shadow of doubt followed him. He knew he lacked experience, and his hands shook sometimes as he worked the earth. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still the soil lay bare. No green, no sprout, not even a hint of life breaking through. His confidence, already fragile, began to fray. Each time he passed the neighboring fields, already glowing with shoots of wheat and rice, his chest tightened. He wondered if he had been naive, if his dream of bringing something extraordinary to his village was only an illusion. And yet, something in him resisted surrender. Each dawn he carried water to the field, whispering small prayers no one heard. He weeded the earth, though there was no plant to protect. He waited, though waiting hurt. Deep down, beneath his uncertainty, the young farmer longed not just for a harvest, but for proof that faith and patience were not wasted. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the village square filled with chatter, the young farmer sat alone near the well. His shoulders were heavy, his eyes tracing the cracked bucket rope, wondering if his own efforts were just as frayed. That was when an old man approached, a figure many villagers called eccentric, though others whispered he carried a wisdom deeper than most dared to seek. His beard was silver, his hands calloused, and his eyes, though clouded with age, seemed to see straight into hidden places. The old man sat beside him without ceremony and asked simply, "Why does sorrow sit on your face, son?" The farmer sighed, confessing his secret fear, that the seeds he planted were lifeless, that his months of labor were nothing more than a public embarrassment. The old man listened without interruption, nodding slowly, as if each word was a grain added to the scale of truth. Finally, the elder spoke. "Some roots," he said quietly, "must grow deep before the world sees a single leaf. What is hidden beneath the soil is often more important than what shows above it." He leaned closer. "You cannot rush the ground any more than you can rush the sunrise. Your task is not to demand the harvest, but to tend faithfully until it comes." Then he placed a small wooden cup in the young man's hands. "Bring water each day, even if the soil looks empty. Treat the unseen as if it is alive. In time you will learn whether patience was your foolishness or your crown." The farmer stared at the cup, unsure if it was comfort or challenge. But something in the old man's words stirred his heart. Perhaps waiting was not failure. Perhaps silence itself was a test. The next morning, before the rooster had finished its cry, the farmer walked to his barren field with the wooden cup in hand. Dew clung to his sandals as he bent to gather water, just as the old man had instructed. The soil looked no different from yesterday, flat, dry, unyielding. Still, he poured the water slowly, as if it mattered, and then he returned the following day, and the day after that. At first, his heart swelled with renewed resolve. Each trip felt like a promise kept. Yet as the weeks rolled on, his hope began to wear thin. The other farmers' fields had already grown tall with wheat, golden heads swaying in the wind. Children laughed as they played hide and seek between the stalks. Meanwhile, his own field was nothing but dirt and silence. The ridicule sharpened. "Look at him," villagers muttered, shaking their heads. "Watering soil, as though prayers can coax miracles." Some laughed louder. "He's feeding the earth like it's a child. Poor fool, he will harvest dust." The words stung, cutting into him with every trip to the field. Even his own family urged him to stop. "You've wasted enough time," they pleaded. "Plant rice like the rest of us. At least you'll have food for the winter." Doubt swelled inside him like a storm. Each night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams, wondering if patience had become his prison. One afternoon, exhausted and angry, he flung the cup aside. "Enough," he muttered. "I've been deceived by hope." He turned away from the field, ready to abandon the foolish dream, but as he walked, his eyes caught the old man standing at the far edge of the field, silent, watching. No lecture, no words, just a gaze steady as stone. Shame burned the farmer's chest. He bent, picked up the cup again, and poured the water. Days blurred into weeks. Seasons shifted. Rainstorms lashed the valley. Winds swept away rooftops, and the soil seemed endlessly stubborn. Yet still he watered. Something within him changed. Not the soil, not the seeds, but his own heart. The routine of care, once heavy as a burden, became strangely light, even grounding. Then, one dawn, as the first light broke across the valley, the earth beneath his field trembled. He thought at first it was a trick of his weary eyes. But no, the soil cracked open and a slender green shoot pushed through, trembling but alive. Within days, more shoots followed, stronger, taller, until the entire field shimmered with new growth. The villagers gathered, their laughter silenced. Some gasped in wonder. Others stood speechless as the plants rose higher and faster than any wheat they had ever seen. By midsummer, the once barren ground had become a forest of towering stalks, each heavy with grain unlike any the valley had known. The farmer knelt, tears streaming down his face, as he realized the truth. All those silent months had not been wasted. Beneath the earth, the roots had been spreading deep and wide, anchoring the plants for the abundance that was now bursting into view. What had looked like failure was preparation, and in that moment, he understood. The struggle had not only grown a harvest, it had grown him. When the harvest ripened, the farmer carried a bundle of golden stalks to the village square. The grains gleamed in the sunlight, thick and weighty, unlike anything the people had ever touched. Children ran their hands across the kernels, astonished at their size. The same neighbors who once laughed now stood in awe, whispering, "How did this happen?" The old man appeared once more, leaning on his staff, and spoke so all could hear. "You mocked him because you saw nothing, but nothing on the surface does not mean nothing beneath. While you laughed, roots were weaving a fortress underground, building strength for what was to come." His voice carried over the silent crowd. That is the nature of patience. It works where eyes cannot see. The farmer bowed his head, humbled not by victory, but by the lesson he had lived. He finally understood the elder's cryptic words. The hidden season was not punishment, but preparation. The delay was never empty. It was forming resilience, deepening roots, teaching him faith that holds even when results are absent. He realized, too, that the waiting had shaped him as much as it had shaped the plants. In tending to the unseen, he had learned perseverance. In watering dry soil, he had learned trust. And in enduring the scorn of others, he had discovered quiet strength. The harvest was not only in the field, it was in his spirit. To those who gathered, the old man offered a final reflection. Remember this in your own lives. A dream, a skill, a prayer, a relationship. These too have seasons of silence. Do not despise them. They are the very roots of greatness. You cannot rush them, but you can nurture them. What grows unseen today will become the abundance of tomorrow. And so the farmer's story became more than his own. It became a mirror for every weary heart in the village. For those who wanted to give up on their studies, for those waiting for healing, for those building homes and families with no applause, his field was proof. Patience was not wasted time. It was the foundation of lasting fruit. The sun sank low over the valley, painting the fields in hues of amber and rose. Where once there had been only barren soil, now a sea of golden stalks bent gracefully in the wind. The farmer stood at the edge of his land, his face weathered but lit with quiet joy. His story had become more than a harvest. It had become a living parable written into the landscape itself. Patience, he now knew, was not the absence of progress. It was the secret work of time, preparing what could not yet be seen. His long months of silence had not betrayed him. They had built him. The very season he once cursed as empty had been the womb of abundance. For anyone who has waited and wondered, who has poured effort into dreams that seem to remain hidden, let this picture be your encouragement. The roots are working. You may not see them, but beneath the surface, strength is forming, depth is anchoring, and life is preparing to break through. So do not despise your quiet seasons. Do not abandon your unseen labor. Trust that your faithful persistence is writing a future you cannot yet imagine. Just as dawn eventually follows night, so too will your harvest come in its time. And when it does, you will discover what the farmer discovered, that the gift is not only in the result, but also in who you have become through the waiting. Sometimes the richest harvest is not the grain in your hands, but the resilience in your heart. If this story of patience and hidden growth touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who is in their own waiting season, someone who needs the reminder that silence does not mean failure. Let them see that beneath the surface, something strong may already be forming. And if you want more stories that inspire, encourage, and remind you of timeless truths, subscribe to this channel. Every week we bring you another tale to lift your spirit and steady your steps. Stay with us, because your next harvest might be closer than you think.